Call to order the regular meeting of the Gladstone City Commission, Monday, November 25th, 2013. Our first order of business will be the invocation led by Commissioner Gay. Please rise.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you this evening for this outstanding place in which we get to live and call home. We thank you for this wonderful time of year and this Thanksgiving holiday that we're coming upon. We ask that you would bless us with the fruits of the harvest. And Father, we'd ask that you provide wisdom as we go about the business of the city. And we ask that you would provide safety as we come into this winter season. Our residents and guests are driving. All this we ask in Christ's name. Amen.
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 Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the city clerk call the roll, please?
Mayor Mackey,
Here.
Commissioner Bostwick,
Here.
Commissioner Gay,
Here.
Commissioner Mattinen,
Here.
Commissioner Nemechek.
Here.
Next item on our agenda is public comment. Do we have any public comment this evening? Hearing none. Conflict of interest is just a standard thing. We all know what that's about. So the next item on our agenda would be consent agenda. We have the City Commission reorganizational meeting minutes of November 11, 2013. We have the City Commission regular meeting minutes of November 11, 2013, and we have payment of bills which have been presented to us tonight for our consent agenda.
I'd move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Mattinen, supported by Commissioner Gay to accept the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Next item, we have a public hearing. This public hearing is for special assessment number 313, which is paving, curb and gutter of the 7 to 800. It's actually 700 block of Wisconsin, is it not? Yes. 7-800 block. It's actually 700 block. One block.
Yeah, 700.
One block.
From 7 to 800. From 7th Street to 8th Street.
That's not what it says. That's why I was. That's not what it says. That's why. I kind of suspected you didn't know what I was looking at. Okay, so you take the bullet for him. Darla, do you have something you want to present to us, or do you want us to open a public hearing first? Or
This is a project that we did this past summer. We had a meeting, I believe it was March 28th, with all the property owners in the parking lot of Skratsky Funeral Home. Went through the whole project, questions, comments at that time. In my opinion, no property owner had a problem with the project. In fact, most of them said it was definitely a project we needed to move forward with. This project has been on our list and removed for several years. And after the fact, I think it's a very, very nice street there. Some new curbs and new pavement. Have had no comments from the residents. No.
nobody's here tonight.
Nope.
We're still going to hold a public hearing open for a minute, so if you can put me on a timer. If there are any comments from the public about this proposed special assessment at the public hearing, now would be the time to hear those. We'll hold it open for a minute. Okay, Hearing no comments from the public, do we have any comments from the city commissioners about the item that's presented in front of us tonight? Then we'd be looking for a motion if there's no comments from the commission.
So moved.
Motion is made.
Support.
Support. Motion by Commissioner Nemecheck, supported by Commissioner Gay. To approve the public hearing, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion is carried.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
You may.
You normally determine the terms of the special assessment at this point?
She's right. Since we have two new commissioners, I think probably you should give us a little explanation of what you're talking about is how long we're going to spread this payment out for and whether there's going to be any interest, which needs to be a part of our motion, so we really need to redo that. I think we haven't been charging interest lately because the idle cash that the cities has available that's in the banks earns very little interest right now.
Correct.
Interest rates are so low.
The two other road assessments that the commission has approved this fiscal year have been at 0% interest for 7 years. 7 years. So what that means is we send the initial bill today for the full amount, but our charter also authorizes us to, if no payment has been made within a year, so next winter tax bill, we'll send a letter to these residents saying, you haven't made any payments, 1/5 or 1/7 or whatever the term is now due. If you do not pay it, we can assess that with a penalty on your winter tax bill.
Which does incur 10% interest, I believe.
Correct. And then that's how we bill them every year. They can pay it in full at any point during the 7 years. They can make payments.
As long as they're making regular payments, there is no interest accruing, so they're just paying back the principal amount which you have before you tonight on the special assessment sheet. So I think probably if you would amend your motion, Commissioner Nemecheck, to include
I will.
0% for 7 years.
I will. How did we come up with $13 a foot?
That would be a Barry Lund Public Works.
Public Works Director?
How did I come up with $13? I basically took a percentage of the cost of it. We estimated $50,000 for the rebuild, 10% or 15%, whatever it was, at $8,500 in assessments.
Is that normal? What you normal?
That's kind of what we've been doing in the past.
Okay. Thank you.
Just for a little background before we vote on this, the previous commission had, I would say it would be fair to say, and there's two other commissions here who could agree or disagree, had some issues about special assessments. It's traditionally been how all the streets, curb and gutter in Gladstone have been accomplished. If you went back to the late 1960s, you would find that most of the streets, which are the north-south public roads, were not paved, didn't have curb and gutter, and the city accomplished all of that via special assessment. Those streets are starting to fail now because they're 40 years old.
Okay.
So, again, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion's carried. Does that work for you? We have one item of unfinished business. This came up again before the election. Some of our neighbors just down the block here have been having a problem with fireworks being set off at very inopportune times, bothering people's lifestyles, losing sleep, danger to their property, etc. They asked us to take a look at it. There is some new ability of local units of government to control fireworks, and we asked staff to take a look at it. Staff asked for some time to come back with a proposed ordinance, and that's what we've got before us tonight. Darla?
I will refer to Paul and Kim. I was not available to meet with them on this, so they put their heads together and came up with what's in your packet tonight.
Good evening, Paul Geyer from Public Safety. Like Mayor Mackey said, we were approached, we've had an issue with fireworks, like each community has at certain times of the year. since the change in the state of Michigan law that allows consumer fireworks to be sold and or used in more frequently or in different areas, we've had a significant increase in the number of complaints, hence the letter you received at the August, I don't know which meeting exactly that it was, but the October 14th meeting is when that letter was presented to the commission, complaining about not only the noise from the fireworks, but also the debris that comes down in neighboring yards from people or individuals that are using fireworks. Yes, sir.
Could you explain what consumer fireworks are? I have the communication here, but it doesn't really, could I stop at, does it include, skyrockets or fireworks? Firecrackers?
There's three basic forms of fireworks in the state of Michigan. There's display fireworks, which would be the fireworks that are used basically for the city 4th of July type events that are the big, for lack of better terms, the industrial size fireworks. Then there are
with a permit.
that require a permit by you as the governing body of the city to allow those to take place. Then there are consumer fireworks, which are Roman candles, bottle rockets, basically anything that goes up in the air and makes a big bang.
There's no limit. I
Nope.
could stop on my way back from Florida at one of those Tennessee fireworks shops and
You could do
get
it
one
in,
of those huge skyrockets, and that'd be legal?
you can do it in Michigan at many shops now. It used to be.
You couldn't do that, you couldn't purchase them in Michigan before, but they were brought into Michigan.
No, because our neighboring states like Wisconsin and Ohio did allow consumer fireworks, so many people were traveling out of state. They were purchasing these fireworks, bringing them back into Michigan. Technically, a couple years ago, 2011, prior to 2011, they were illegal. Since 2011, they have been legal, and they have been available to purchase in Michigan shops and stores. And since that time, there have been many complaints from a local community perspective to the state of Michigan saying, wait a minute, you basically opened up a big can of worms, and we're the ones that have to deal with all the complaints of noise and deal with the complaints of debris coming down in different areas. So in 2013, they passed another amendment per se, or a public act, which revised the state fireworks law, which allowed local communities to regulate the use of consumer fireworks. Now, this doesn't pertain to novelties, which are like the little toy snakes that you would light, or sparklers that you would hold in your hand, or the little throw-down poppers that a lot of times you'll see the younger kids use. This has nothing to do with novelties. Those are specifically spelled out in the state law as well as our proposed local ordinance. What this ordinance deals with is the consumer fireworks. Display fireworks, like I mentioned, they have to come and obtain a permit from the city council. I can't grant those permits. That you might ask me to look into the circumstances around those, but that has to be done by the governing body of the local municipality. So the display fireworks are taken care of basically through maintaining those regulations that, where we want it safe, we want all the NFPA standards followed and whatnot. It's the consumer fireworks that we didn't have any sort of control over. This ordinance provides us with the ability to put some regulations and some stipulations in on when and basically where consumer fireworks can be detonated, or used. We cannot regulate the discharge of fireworks on the 10 recognized national holidays, and those are listed in the proposed ordinance. Either on those days or the day preceding or the day after. So basically there are 33 days out of the year that someone can discharge or have consumer fireworks. So say for instance the 4th of July, on the 3rd of July, the 4th of July, and the 5th of July, they are allowed to utilize consumer fireworks. What we can do though is we can limit limit it to those days and say on the other 330 some days out of the year, you are not going to be able to discharge consumer fireworks within the city of Gladstone. And on the days that you were allowed to, the day before, the day of, and the day after those nationally recognized holidays, you are only allowed to do it during this period of time. And I believe based on the size of our community, we have in here between the hours of 1 a.m. and 8 a.m., you're not allowed to do it. So if we were a little bit bigger city, I believe the population difference is 50,000 people, I think, or something like that. We would be able to regulate it even a little bit tighter than that. I think it's 11 p.m. But for smaller areas, smaller rural areas, the state has allowed us to enact a moratorium between the hours of 1 a.m. and 8 a.m. So I guess I can kind of just to give you a background a little bit of where we came from this, and I'm referring to we as in the city clerk and I. There's several communities that since the law was passed in 2011 were able to institute their regulations, but there was nothing on the ability to regulate the times. The majority of the complaints that my department receives is that it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and I don't care if it's the 5th of July or the 4th of July, but people are shooting fireworks off, and, you know, come on, it should have ended at 11, or it should have ended at 10 o'clock, or whatever the case may be, but it's the noise complaints from that. And the most recent ones we've been getting is they're shooting them off at this address, and then all of the debris and everything is falling on my property, or, you know, my roof, or in my, you know, in the property owned by the neighbors or whatever. So they've been complaining about that. So this ordinance, allowed by state law, deals with that a little bit. We've basically, you know, there's no sense recreating the wheel. We've obviously utilized other ordinances that have already been passed and approved in different municipalities. The one thing that was added to this that is a relatively new section, or a new outreach, so to speak, for municipalities is the on page, or section 5, under miscellaneous requirements and provisions, subsection 5, it says a person shall not discharge consumer fireworks in such a manner so as remnants from the consumer fireworks land on public property or the property of another, including but not limited to hotel and motel property, apartment property, condominium property, without that person or organization's express permission. That allows us to deal with the types of complaints that we've been receiving about debris coming down in different areas of town. I say that that's not, it's an add-on for some communities because it wasn't specifically designated as part of the State Public Act that it would be allowed in that. But it is something that a lot of communities are adding into theirs because of the increase in problems from that. And the rest of the, you know, the miscellaneous requirements, prohibitions, not sold to minors. Minors shall not possess consumer fireworks, and a minor for the purposes of this ordinance would be anyone under the age of 18 years old. To not be under the influence of alcoholic liquor while discharging consumer fireworks. A lot of it is just safety. If there's a burn ban in place, either put in by me locally or by the state fire marshal, which is done quite often in the UP during the times that we have high wildfire conditions, you would not be allowed to discharge consumer fireworks. And then there is a penalty. The penalty portion is what is dictated out of the State Public Act that's allowed. It would be a civil infraction. It's not a misdemeanor. If I could equate that to a civil infraction seatbelt ticket or a parking, a speeding citation. It's not a crime per se, but it's a civil infraction with a civilly imposed fine. And there is a section in there that allows us to recoup costs of confiscating and/or storage and disposal of consumer fireworks that are found in violation of the act or violation of the ordinance. Sometimes there is some cost incurred by us if we come across a large amount of bigger fireworks. And some of the consumer fireworks that are out there today are big. They're the equivalent of a very significant detonation device, I would say.
Do you know what the fine usually is? I know it says not more than 500.
Not more than 500. Usually the fines, when they're listed like that, a lot of times the district court will set those for us.
Okay.
Because there is a state-required amount of a fines and costs associated with a civil infraction violation. I don't know what that exactly would be, but it can't be more than 500 per violation by the state law. Or
So
by,
then they'd have to go to court then?
they would have, it would be handled just like any other civil infraction citation. They would have to take care of it through district court. I guess unless, I hope that's a decent rundown of the proposal. I think, what we're doing is trying to make sure that people are still allowed to discharge fireworks. We don't want to, nor are we allowed to impose any greater restrictions than what state law allows, which state law gives them the permission on those 33 days, and those are designated in the ordinance. But for the most part, 33 days is plenty, is what we're saying, out of the course of the year, and we've been having too many complaints related to noise and the debris to deal with them during other times of the year. So, any questions for me or for Kim? I mean, she was pretty involved in
Would
the
you
whole
have
process.
eventually approached us with this based on other complaints you've gotten? Or
Yeah.
the specific
Yes.
complaint to come before?
No,
Okay.
we were
So this is-
prompted a little
this is
more
just
by
that one
the.
particular situation.
We were prompted a little bit sooner than by the letter that was submitted. However, this recent act that allowed city or municipalities to go a little bit further with the fireworks ordinance just happened in 2013. So a lot of communities are revising their fireworks ordinance, and for the most part, Gladstone never had a fireworks ordinance in the past. We were dealing with fireworks complaints either based on a disturbing the peace type ordinance or a noise type complaint, or if someone was injured, you have some possibilities with different avenues there. But we really haven't had a solid fireworks ordinance that would allow us to deal with some of the
So
complaints.
now instead of having to get creative when your officers show up when there's a definite problem, you have an ordinance you go straight to,
Yeah, correct.
and it spells it out.
Yep, correct.
It may be different on the Bluff or the Buckeye, but in town here, the ordinance, you can't shoot off a skyrocket without it putting debris somewhere other than your property. I don't know how many, of course, I live near the park, and every year I pick all kinds of debris off my roof.
And I would say that 90% of our involvement with this ordinance in that respect would be dealt with on a complaint basis.
Okay.
If somebody is complaining about it, because you have a right to enjoy your property, and if somebody's dropping basically litter, whether it's coming, from the sky or whatever, if they're shooting it off, that, we all have to
Some of
exist
those
within
things are
certain.
a couple inches in diameter.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a wonder it hasn't started a fire because they come down hot.
It has in the past.
I've had shingles that have been scarred by them.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. I think we're mainly trying to deal with the safety aspects of it. We're not trying to take away somebody's ability to have fireworks for their kids and to enjoy the holidays. But
But there's a real thin line between what you've described as you're tolerating it and you're not complaining, and there's other folks who are saying, hey, this isn't
Well,
causing
no.
us not to enjoy our property anymore, and they're calling the officers, and they want the officers to take action. There's
Correct.
a thin line there.
yes.
It only happens, it doesn't happen on Martin Luther King's birthday.
I'm
but
sure it doesn't.
We do get it on the 4th of July.
Well, and we have had a recent complaints of a couple weeks ago.
Oh, really?
So people are still
Is that
shooting them off, and it's still causing issues.
store in Escanaba maybe is a little too handy.
Well, and, you know, I'm all for them profiting on the.
Oh, yeah, I have no
On
problem
the
with that.
sale, but we have to have some regulations in place
Yeah.
that trying to control it.
Okay, so what's your pleasure? Are we prepared to act on this tonight, or it occurs to me, maybe, don't look at me that way, that we might want to do a public hearing on this, so that
Well,
everybody knows?
it has to be done, and that,
Okay.
Kim will fill you in on that part.
If you so chose to proceed with this ordinance or proposed ordinance, this could serve as the introduction of that, and you would set a public hearing then for your next meeting or a meeting in the future, and then I would advertise that and
I'm
everything.
assuming that's what we want to do.
I would point out one thing, and it's included in almost every ordinance now. If, say, for example, our section in here that dealt with the debris, if somebody were to challenge that, or any section of the ordinance per se, if they were to challenge it and a court would rule that that's not enforceable on our ordinance, that doesn't invalidate the whole ordinance. It invalidates that section. We would still have the remaining parts of the ordinance. So
Severability.
severability clause, yeah.
There's a lawyer in our midst.
Not quite.
But I wanted to point that out because sometimes we get caught up in a certain section of an ordinance, which obviously through public hearings and through the different committees that we have, we can change that before it's passed or enacted. But even if something is in there that you might think is,
I think our goal is to, I think it's well-written. I think you've covered your bases very well. We have the authority to do it. I think our ultimate goal is to keep people from getting carried away. It's not to stifle fun. It's to keep people from getting carried away, and I think that that's what's prompted a lot of the complaints. People have gotten carried away, so now we have to
well, it's
put
and
in
it's
place a measure that we can make sure that they can still enjoy themselves, yet we don't want to burn any houses down, destroy anybody else's property, infringe on anybody else's property rights.
and it's like
So-
any new thing that's allowed. The
go
last couple
crazy for a
the
while
last
and
couple
then
years
it-
have
yeah.
been significant in the number of complaints that we've had over previous years. That may die down a little bit, but we definitely want to have the ability to help it die down if it doesn't, by the ability to regulate it a little bit.
Then, do we need a motion to?
I would move that we approve the introduction of ordinance number 592 fireworks ordinance, and we'll set a public hearing for Monday, December 9, 2013 to receive the public input.
I support.
Moved and supported. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion's carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. New business. We were approached earlier about, I'm sure everybody's pretty familiar that we recently did a master plan for the sports park, and it indicated a lot of different things we could be doing at the sports park to make the sports park a lot better facility than it currently has been. One of the main items, and the first item we chose to go after, was improve snowmaking capacity. And then after we approved some expenditure through your current budget, you were able to get grant funds from the Hannahville community. And that's what you're here to talk with us tonight about, Nicole Sanderson.
Good evening. I'd like to take just a couple of minutes to welcome the new commissioners and congratulate the Commissioner Mattinen and Mayor Mackey. I wasn't here for the swearing in, so welcome and thank you for your service. My name's Nicole Sanderson. I'm Parks and Recreation Director for the City of Gladstone. And Joe gave you a little bit of Mayor Mackey gave you a little bit of background on the ski hill and the snowmaking capabilities that we're pursuing up there. Currently, we do have a reservoir up there now that is going to be able to allow for cold water and for us to run pressure through guns. So it'll be able to allow us to make snow from anywhere from 25 to 29 degrees. In the past, we were limited to about 18 degrees or less. So this will allow us to make snow pretty soon. We could have started making it already. The commission allocated $30,000 for the pond, or $36,000 $36,000 for the pond. We were successful after that meeting at getting funds from the Hannahville Indian community in the amount of $40,000. So the pond is actually almost complete and ready to go, and it's going to come in at about $39,000. So I'm here tonight to ask if you would like to reallocate some of those funds that you previously allocated for the pond and allow us to buy what they call a polecat. I gave you some literature. A polecat is a gun, a snowmaking machine that you will see at Marquette Mountain or some of the bigger ski resorts. Right now, we have a fan-operated machines, and they do fine, but they are limited. These polecats really make a lot of snow very
Question.
quickly.
I have a question. I thought we were talking before about you needed 2 of these.
Oh, I would.
Was that accurate, or?
We could use more, but let's try one first and see how well it does.
I just
And
just
then-
remembered that was discussed, that, that you proposed 2 of them, so.
We have 3 operational guns and 1 gun that we use for parts right now of our fan style. We would still continue to use those.
Okay, so you wouldn't be taking those offline?
So, to play the devil's advocate, I'm going to give you both sides. Maybe we would be smart to see how the reservoir worked before we, pursued, $14,000 for one of these guns. We don't know, how fast that reservoir is going to recharge. And these guns, of course, require a lot of water because they make a lot of snow. And on the flip side of that, the positive side of that, is that the resale of these guns, worst case scenario, the pond doesn't recharge. We buy a $14,000 piece of machinery. The gun that we're proposing to buy is a reconditioned machine, and they had 5 of them 2 weeks ago. This is the last one. They sell very quickly. So the retail value of selling a gun, if it didn't work, we would be buying something that was going to hold its value. A reconditioned machine, Vern from Marquette tells me, is just as good as a new one. Why buy a new car when you could buy one with 30,000 miles on it? That type of concept. They're very basic and they're very repairable, replaceable, things like that. This machine is located in Grand Rapids. We would be able to go pick that up and save the $800 in shipping charges because we have one of our park crew are going down there for the holidays.
I just have a question on, so the pond that you said it's gonna be 39,000?
Yes.
Where is that money coming from?
Hannahville Indian Community.
The 40,000?
Yep.
Of that 40,000, so where would this 15,000? You said reallocate it. So
Yeah.
what exactly.
A month and a half ago during a commission meeting, they decided to move forward with the snowmaking to give us more capability. So they allocated $36,000 towards the pond. Shortly after, to construct the pond.
Okay.
Shortly after that, we were successful with the Hannahville the next Monday. So we didn't use that money.
Okay, so that was money left over.
You're also
Or money
gonna
not
see this-
spent.
Not
You're also
spent.
going to see this discussion further on in our agenda when we do budget amendments, because at the start of the year when we adopted our budgets, this project wasn't identified. The master plan came in and we decided that we should hit the ground running with a project, so we allowed you to change the budget that we had adopted at the start of the year. So we're going to see that later on our agenda tonight.
Well, and with a little background, we've committed to moving forward and providing the Parks and Rec Director with, to the extent of our capability, the tools that she needs to make that ski hill, tubing hill successful. There were some issues with the city water and that's, that caused the need to do the pond, and you had discussed these are so much more efficient and effective, and the rate of, their production of snow is far superior to what we currently have.
And the quality of snow.
Quality of snow.
Yeah. It's gonna be night and day, and I really wanted to. I was ready to wait for 1 year to test the reservoir and to do things. A little push that made me think about maybe asking y'all for some money was, we've redesigned our terrain park. A couple of high school kids, entrepreneurs, if you will, have added almost 8 new apparatuses to our terrain park. I have pictures that I'll forward to you. And they've really, people are talking about it in Marquette already. So I really feel the more snow, the better quality of snow that we can produce. Our return is going to be significant this year.
But the key was to get open by
Christmas.
Are we
The 21st.
Are we still on target for that currently?
Yes. Even with the guns that we have currently, I'm confident that we'll be able to do that because of the ability to make snow.
Looks like you're going to have the weather for it.
Yeah,
so.
these guns break up the molecule, and if we didn't have cold water and we were running off city water, they would still make snow at a higher temperature than the guns that we have currently. But they use so much water and they draw so much pressure that we can't use city water on these guns. 13 years ago, we had 3 of these guns, and when we lost our pond, we sold them, and we sold them right away. So now that we have this reservoir that we can run, 250 psi through, we can run these big guns.
Is there any value to the other snowmaking machines that we have?
They use less electricity.
No, I mean, is there any value to them if we were to get rid of them
Salvage
down
value.
the road and buy another one of these?
They go for, right now, a place in Wisconsin is selling 4 of them for $1,000 a piece.
Okay, so not really then.
Not so much. The quality of snow is night and day from the 2 guns.
And when do you think the reservoir would be operated?
Probably next Wednesday. They're still running the final electricity and putting in the final pump. We're waiting on 1 pump right now. But we have tested the system. We tested the pressure going up the hill. For a project that has so many unknowns, it was terrifying, to be perfectly honest. But so far, everything looks real promising.
I move we buy the gun.
I support it.
We have a motion and support to approve this project that was presented to us by the Parks and Recreation Department. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thanks again, you guys.
Those
And once
opposed?
again, welcome.
Motion carried. I've been hearing a lot of people talk about that pond. There's a lot of people aware that we dug a pond on that hill, and there's a lot of people aware that we're trying to do the right thing with the sports park and as Commissioner Gay said, give you the tools you need to run the sports park professionally. I believe one of the things you and the consultant who runs Mount Ripley and Hancock, if you're ever in Houghton, you'll see it when you look across the canal, said our prices right now, our fees that we charge at the sports park are apology fees. Or apologetic fees. So.
Yes, we're hoping to take that, because you either love the sports park or hate the sports park, so we would like to make that a love relationship. So wish us luck this year. Thank you for the tools. I'll do my best.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is been referred to us by the DDA. I attended the DDA meeting. As the mayor, I'm a member of the DDA now, and I do like to attend DDA meetings because they're the one entity that has the finances available to market the city, which we really don't unless we want to stop spending money on some other things that we're doing right now, which I don't think we'd want to do. So when the DDA is willing to spend money on marketing, I think it's a pretty good deal for us. And we have a good relationship with the DDA. So I went to their last meeting, and there was a project at 26 Lowry Avenue. That's the motel right alongside the highway, owned by Terry Ahola. Him and his son Hans, who Nicole was referring to, that had something to do with the half pipe at the sports park, correct?
Correct.
Presented a project to the DDA, and they're recommending we approve this project tonight. Darla?
In Renee's absence tonight, I'll cover this item for you. Like Mayor Mackey said, the DDA, part of their budget, annual budget, includes a facade program, and many of our downtown businesses have taken advantage of this facade program. However, there are businesses and locations within the city that are not downtown, but they are still within the DDA district, so they're allowed to apply for these funds as well. And this is one of those circumstances. The The motel is in the DDA district, therefore they're able to apply for a facade. And the total project estimate is $6,690. There is a match from the developer, whoever, however they run it through their books. We spend the match first, and then the DDA funds kick in. Can't remember how many facades we've given out this fiscal year. We normally try to budget for about 6 a year, and they are 75% or maximum of $7,500. So this one's just shy of $7,500 maximum total. So it's listed here in your packet what they plan to do, some new doors, a new entrance, some signage, some lighting fixtures. That's what the DDA approved. So we just need your final approval, and Renee will take care of the rest.
Any questions?
Move to approve grant project funds to be released.
I'll second.
Moved and approved to approve the DDA storefront project at 26 Lowry Avenue. Mr. Terriola. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Here's where we get to the budget amendments. Here's where the budget we adopted at the start of the year, which was more guesswork than it is 6 months into the year now, is becoming more solid. So our city treasurer's got to go over several of our operating funds and note some amendments. Vicki Schrader.
This is the first round, as Mayor Mackey said, is 6 month budget amendments. According to Public Act 621, the state requires the adoption of a balanced budget as well as budget amendments to prevent actual expenditures from exceeding those provided in the budget. If you flip to the first page, which is the general fund, I always like to amend the revenue as well as just the expenses. So we do have some revenue here that we did amend. I'd like to note the Hannahville 2% grant. I had thought that it was the sports park activity, but it's actually the trail going to connecting the non-motorized trail to the Terrace Bluff property, the Terrace property. And that coincides with the engineer and architect fees. That is also the that non-motorized trail, which project was actually moved over to the capital projects fund. So with these amendments presented, we are projecting to reduce the transfer from fund balance down to $16,900 with a projected ending fund balance at 3/31/2014 of $348,000.
That's the general fund.
That's the general fund. Next page is the revolving loan fund. We've kind of been waiting for this fund to be turned over to the state, turned over to Northern Initiatives. Normally this fund has just loan repayments and interest. So this is just creating the budget. Next page is the capital projects fund. And this fund is basically just a flow through for projects. All of the expenses that are budgeted here are covered either by grants or transfers from other funds such as the DDA or all of the other funds to cover the GIS expenses. So this is just kind of, we've gotten grant money for things like the sports park pond, which was the Hannahville 2% grant, so that's just accounting for the money coming in, and then also the expenditures coming out.
I think it's really so that you're not mingling operating expenses with capital expenses. This is where you track major expenses.
The next one is just the DDA. And when they originally presented the budget, they had everything, all of their projects listed under capital outlay. And this is just allocating them according to audit procedures. When you're transferring between funds, you have to do transfer from, transfer to. So that's just kind of moving them into the correct account numbers. There also was, I did find a little mistake when we put the budget together. We had a transfer from fund balance of 7,600, when in reality or transfer to fund balance, when in reality we're transferring from fund balance. So I just adjusted that down to 0. So the DDA projection is transferring from fund balance of 192,000. And that'll still leave 150,500 left in fund balance. And the last one is just the electric fund. Tom White adjusted for the sale of material. They had sold some old transformers. And then also he adjusted for the small and large power sales, which he adjusted down 140,000. And the only thing that we can think of there is people becoming more energy efficient, as far as why the sales would be down, but he's going to be digging into that a little bit more. So he is projecting to transfer from fund balance 106,000.
Any questions? This is probably like Greek.
Yeah.
Yes? No?
I always have most
Good.
interesting stuff to bring to the commission meetings.
No, businesses have budgets there.
Yes, but generally, I'm assuming you've looked at one set of books, and when you're sitting here, it'd be the equivalent of if you own, say, 5 different businesses, you'd have a separate set of accounting records for each one of those businesses, and there's interfund activity. And so sometimes it can be daunting. I actually train 2 people to be in the fund accounting method, and it's hard for someone coming out of college with a degree in accounting who's just had exposure to private one set of books accounting. So sometimes it's daunting. Perhaps it's not for you. What I would also suggest to the new commissioners is that you look at the fund balance. In the past, the city had some problems with fund balance in some of the funds, the street funds and the general fund, to the point where we were going to have to explain to the state how we were going to get out of a hole. And I don't think we ever want to get into that. So minute detail is what she pays attention to. The fund balance is, I think, where we need to keep an eye on what staff is doing so that we maintain responsible fund balances in all of the various companies that we operate. That's my 2 cents.
Move to amend the budget as presented.
Support.
It's been moved and supported to approve the fiscal year 2013-2014 budget amendments as presented by the city treasurer. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, motion is carried. Another annual or semi-annual procedure, delinquent receivables, moving off to the tax roll, which you're going to see some delinquent utilities.
Yep, I'm getting ready to send out the winter tax bills probably next week. And this is just every season we have special assessments off to taxes. The assessment number 308, this is the last payment for 308, so 308 will be done and completed. Total off to taxes for special assessment, $897. Miscellaneous invoices. Those are just water tap fees, frozen meters, that kind of a thing, grass mowing, $1,200. And then also delinquent utilities. And that is in the total amount of $48,500. And Patty did something different this time. She kind of put together in the notes section, kind of what the average monthly bill for some of these people are running. And some of them are a little,
I think her theory there is if you're not making at least your current bill, you're going backwards faster and
Right.
faster and faster, so.
right, right. So looking.
Now, I know you've seen unpaid bills before in the private sector.
Yeah, and the other side too is when you have a business, you know, you have all the profit centers, which basically is the same as what you're doing here.
Sure.
But what I wanted to ask on these delinquent bills, we have people that are paying $50 a week, according to this. Have we agreed that $50 a week is satisfactory? Are we accepting $50 a week, for instance? I guess my question is, if I had somebody that I agreed was going to pay $50 a week,
And they're
which
not.
I've done many times, and I don't take them to court as long as they're paying the $50 a week. I know this isn't taking them to court, but I assume that we're taking it from the receivable into the taxes so that we can take them to court if we have to and we have more leverage. Is that
Well,
true?
actually, no, if you don't pay your taxes, you lose your house. So there's a
Yes.
lot more incentive to pay your taxes than there
Okay,
is
then
pay-
your house
It
goes up for
places
tax
a
sale.
lien on the property.
Okay,
I don't know the whole workings of the utility billing and how Patty figures out, what a normal payment, you know, as
It
far
should
as-
be, as I just described, if you're using $200 a month of utilities, and I'm just throwing a number out there, and you're not making $200 a month of payments, then you're going backwards.
I understand that, but I mean, if
Right.
we
That's
have an
what I think she
agreement
should
with
be doing.
someone, if we have an agreement with someone and we're accepting their money, and then I don't think we should do any more until, maybe they're not paying enough per week. Maybe we should tell them that.
There
But if
are,
we have people that are trying to work with us, I think we should try to work with them. That's my only point.
Public Act 295 went into law a couple years ago, and it put a lot of restrictions on cities of, for example, during the winter now, December 1st through April 15th, I think it is, April 1st maybe, we can't turn people's power off. We can't turn people's power off if you're 65 or older, so we had to send out a form to all of our
Ever?
customers. Yeah.
Wonder if they know that.
Oh, of course they do.
I didn't know it.
They do now.
So
When
there's certain.
when I was a city treasurer here, and Darla used to be my deputy, we could get a lot more aggressive about making collections. This act basically says, and people know
Tied our
it,
hands.
that during the winter, you're not gonna get turned off, no matter what, even if you're not making a payment.
So there are
guess what
certain months
happens?
that we have to get them through, that we want them to pay us something. You know, some people, we tell them, okay, we'll accept $50 a month for these 3 months, but come July, summer tax bill, we're applying the rest of your tax bill. Or now, we're applying the rest of your winter bill.
Okay. Understand.
And is there a certain point before it, I mean, some of these are, you know, really high, and some of these are not as high as other, you know, quite low. Is there, I guess I'm just trying to say is,
I think that's what
Is
you
there a
just
certain-
described. Is
Okay.
Once the warm weather hits and,
Right.
and you're not gonna harm anybody by turning your utilities off, that could be a possible action taken, right?
Yep. Some are businesses, their monthly bill's gonna be higher than residential people.
Are some of these businesses always on here?
Yes?
Yes. And some of these people
I
are.
You can
figured.
check the historic record, because it's all part of the public record.
Thank
And
you.
the process to turn people's utilities off these days, we have to go to the home like 4 times before we can actually flip the switch to turn the power off. A letter goes out first, a certain color door knocker needs to go so many days later, another door knocker after that, different color, then we can finally go turn the power off. So between receiving the shut-off notice and actually turning the power off could be week to 10 days.
so
And
do all
some of these people don't make payments just because they know that we'll write it off to their taxes, and then they just pay it all at once.
Do all these residents, did they get like a letter or something
Yes.
saying that we're
Yes,
gonna
they've
do
all been
this?
notified.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll move that we assess delinquent utilities, miscellaneous invoices, and special assessments to the winter 2013 tax roll.
Support. It's been moved and supported to transfer delinquent miscellaneous bills, including utilities, to the winter 2013 tax roll. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
Just as a note, this is a public document you're looking at. I wouldn't discuss names in public. It probably goes without saying, but anybody who wants to see that can see this. Next item on our agenda, the DDA authorized the city manager to make an offer to purchase 911 Delta Avenue as part of the DDA's budget and mission when we created a DDA. I was at that meeting as well, and the offer was accepted. So, we have to approve this action if we agree the DDA should be doing this. We do have authority with the DDA as follows. We have to approve a budget annually for the DDA, and we appoint the people who serve on the DDA to serve. So, and we have, I think, one DDA member with us tonight, Marcy. I thought we'd have a full house, but Marcy's the only one that made it out tonight. This is pretty good news for the DDA. They're pretty excited about this project. They want to make this the downtown center, and they have a lot of plans for the building, which used to house Front Row Video. It's right next to the farmers market, which we just started to create last year. And again, I would once again stress that the DDA has the authority to market the community. There's a lot more things I'd like to see the DDA doing, which I intend to push the DDA to do, and see whether they'll take the bait. I can't make them do it, but I can certainly encourage them. So this is a step in that in that direction, I think. Questions? Comments? I know that when I attended the several DDA meetings there, they had a lot of debate amongst themselves whether they should do this project or not, and they finally came to the resolve that it was something they wanted to do.
Well, being that they accepted the offer, I guess I would move that we allow the city manager, mayor, and clerk to sign all the necessary documents to close it.
Support.
It's been moved and supported to authorize the mayor, the clerk, and the city manager to sign the purchase documents for 911 Delta Avenue through the budget of the Downtown Development Authority. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion is carried. Final item is the Equipment Fund Deficit Elimination Plan. Being that I used to work here and I used to be in the finances, I went to a meeting last week. And I think it'd be fair to say that the city manager and the public works director and the city treasurer are pulling their hair out over what to do about the equipment fund. I think they've done some really good brain work on the equipment fund, which is a continuing problem. First of all, the equipment fund doesn't meet its operating expenses from transfers from the other funds that pay the equipment fund to be in existence, and it doesn't even begin to put away enough money to replace capital items. We've heard stories at the commission level before where certain departments that are paying equipment, they're paying money to the equipment fund to be in operation, are not able to purchase equipment out of the equipment fund because the money just isn't there. And so that's kind of the background that the staff has been kicking around with the auditor and amongst themselves, and they asked me to sit on a meeting last week, and they have a conversation with us tonight. Darla.
We've been working with Ray LaMarche from Anderson Tackman. He helped us do a little bit of analysis. Had we done certain things prior to the close of the previous fiscal year, how would that have affected other funds and stuff? I guess our conclusion for this deficit, we need to cover just over $154,000. And when we really analyze the main pieces of expenses in the equipment fund, looking back to the previous city mechanic, we took a 5-year projection of where he worked, what fund he worked for and stuff. And that's how we come up with the attached spreadsheet that's before you tonight. A city mechanic works on all kinds of equipment throughout the city. All the plows and dump trucks for the winter, as well as, changing the oil in the police cars, Parks and Recreation. Every department has equipment that they have to maintain. So our city mechanic is available to work on all of that machinery. So to bring money into the equipment fund, wherever our city mechanic works, that's how the revenue comes into the equipment fund. Well, when we look back and said our previous mechanic, who now has post-employment health benefits and MERS defined benefit retirement, we never counted that back when he was working for the city. So that's one portion of how we got into the situation that we're in. The other portion that we identified was when our city mechanic works for these other departments, we were not charging them overhead for the building, for the use of his equipment and space and stuff. So those two together is how we came up with the funds attached here. General fund, your street funds, the solid waste fund, electric, water, and sewer fund. So we have 5 years to turn this deficit into break even or a profit. I hope it doesn't take 5 years, but it could. So that's what we projected 5 years out. $30,818.60 a year. And to transfer this kind of money from other funds to the equipment fund needs commission approval. That's why we brought it back to you tonight. And then we will turn this into a formal letter to Department of Treasury.
Again, as I said to you earlier, pay attention to the fund balances of the various funds which are going to have to cover this deficit, and that's what I challenged Darla. I knew she was thinking of this, of whatever action we take is going to have an effect on the fund balance of the major street fund, the local street fund, the general fund, and so forth and so on. And they've done some pretty critical thinking about where to go on this. Right now, they're not proposing to eliminate the equipment fund. That was discussed as a possibility because it's really not working in the way it's intended to work from an accounting perspective.
I think the impact on the separate funds is relatively minimal on an annual basis.
I don't think she'd propose it to us if she didn't feel the same way, right? As far as capital purchases, I believe we need to start looking at making capital purchases like we used to make capital purchases, which is basically a bank, the city, and an equipment supplier enter into agreement whereby the city is not borrowing money to purchase equipment and potentially putting the taxpayers at risk of having to pay off loans. And there is an act, a state act, that allows that for the only collateral of the bank to be that piece of equipment. Back when I worked here, we had purchased any major pieces of equipment, we were paying for them that way, and that's the only way I can see that we're going to be able to start replacing capital. I retired almost 10 years ago, and the city has not purchased any major piece of equipment for the rolling stock that's out on the street in 10 years. You can imagine what the state of the equipment is. Barry would tell you that the average piece of equipment he plows snow with today is, I think, 18 years old.
19 and a half.
19 and a half, excuse me. And then, of course, you get into a situation whereby the older it gets, every time you take it out on the road, you're working on it. So I think that's a longer-term solution to purchasing new equipment. That doesn't do a whole lot for the Public Safety Department, which has to purchase their patrol vehicles. But it is one solution to the rolling stock that's used mainly by the Public Works Department. To some extent also the equipment, the electric and water and wastewater departments. This proposal, I think, tonight is more in tune to correct the operating deficit, not the deficit with not being able to build up enough funds to purchase equipment.
And that would be a systematic
Yep.
issue with
Yep.
the way it's currently constituted. But we have to submit this. What was the?
By December 4th.
By December 4th. I think it's well put together. I would move that we approve this deficit elimination plan schedule to be submitted to Treasury.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Is there any comment? Is this something that you,
What created the deficit, the purchase of equipment?
not properly allocating costs, in my opinion?
But it was not the purchase of equipment. It was the repair of equipment?
No, not charging the funds that are using the equipment enough money to pay for having the equipment fund in operation, which is mainly a mechanic shop. And some legacy costs from retirements.
So this is not necessarily equipment fund, it's equipment maintenance fund?
It's designed to be an equipment maintenance fund and an equipment replacement fund. Tonight, we're talking about equipment maintenance. We're not talking about creating a fund that would, we're not talking about taking corrective action that would create enough funds to purchase equipment. That's a whole different beast
What
altogether.
cost created the deficit?
Not properly allocating costs to the funds that use equipment.
But what cost itself created the deficit? The cost of a mechanic or the cost of?
Legacy costs from the previous mechanic. We're paying his health insurance,
Okay.
10 years beyond retirement. MERS defined benefit is his retirement.
So it's
We're
all
still
those
paying for
costs that created the deficit?
And not charging the departments for over periods of time. This just didn't happen overnight. We've been heading in this direction for a couple
But
of
when
years
the
now.
fund was developed,
Instead of charging the mechanic out at, I'm just gonna throw a number out there, at $10 an hour, which is what you might have been doing, we probably should have been charging $20 an hour. Those are just numbers.
I understand the interdepartmental transfers and so on, but was this fund set up so that it would absorb those costs and also have a residual to buy new equipment? Was that the original concept?
Yes.
Yep.
And now we're trying to get the costs, we're trying to get this back to zero.
Right,
But that still doesn't buy equipment.
That's
correct.
correct.
The procedure I just suggested is, I believe, how the city's going to be able to buy equipment. If, in fact, the city is able to buy equipment in the future, that's the only way they're going to be able to approach it, is to enter into that three-part agreement whereby an equipment supplier agrees to sell a piece of equipment to a bank, which in turn sells it to the city, and the city pays it off over the life of the asset. The limitation will be how much the operating budget can afford to buy that
Which
new
is
equipment.
basically a lease.
Yep.
Okay. City can't just buy it and,
Not if it requires borrowing funds, because then you have to go to the taxpayers to say, hey, we want to borrow money. Which is,
okay.
I don't think something would go
we
over
don't
very
have,
well.
the city commission does not have the power to,
No.
okay, thank you.
And I don't think we want that power.
Not unless we have to co-sign.
Well, I sat in one of my favorite bankers' office one day there, and I know you know who he is if I named a name, and he was explaining to somebody on the phone what a co-signator meant, because
Had to be a unaware parent.
so, yes, no, we don't want to co-sign. So we had a motion and support to approve the equipment fund deficit elimination plan as presented by the city manager and staff. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to city manager's reports.
I have a few handouts tonight. First, I'd like to thank Joanne Chenard. She works for the Gladstone School System. She's one of the art teachers for Cameron and Jones Elementary. And the artwork that you see on the three boards here, this is part of the Dr. Mary Cretin's Art Gallery. She lets us display the art that her kids create in the classroom, and we give them credit on the board there. So anybody that comes to City Hall, please stop by, look at the new art display. This was just put up today. We change it about every 6 to 8 weeks, so.
I believe she's your college roommate?
Yep. So thank you, Joanne, for your help with that. I would also like to thank Mickey Peterson. They donated the Christmas tree this year to us. It'll be lit Friday night right here in the lot next to City Hall. So thank you, Mickey Peterson. Which brings us to Friday night. We have our annual old-fashioned Christmas. We've been doing this for many, many years, and this has been in the Action Shopper this past weekend. We have flyers all over the businesses downtown. If you're available Friday night, please stop down. We have face painting, children's carnival at the Legion, Santa arrives from the North Pole by fire truck, caroling downtown. We have cookies and cider, and the North Pole Express, letters to Santa right here at City Hall, caroling and tree lighting ceremony, take and make project, a live nativity, and photos with Santa. So, very, very good event, well attended every year. Next I have at the last commission meeting, we talked about new commissioners and returning commissioners as well. We would like to tour the various departments that the city has. So we're proposing, if you're available, Friday, December 6th, from 9 to 10 a.m. We'll start out at Public Safety Department. Then we will head to the Water Department from 10 to 11, 11 to 11:30, the Electric Department, which is right behind City Hall here. And then I am inviting you at 11:30 to City Hall chambers here. I'm having, quarterly I have employee luncheons. And this luncheon, we bring in different speakers and people that we can, have 457 plans with, and United Way and EAP services. We kind of rotate who we bring in. Last Tuesday at my weekly staff meeting, we invited Caroline Kennedy to join us, and we watched a video by Peter Kagiyama. He has a book out called For the Love of Cities. He has a 40-minute video on citizen engagement. Very, very worth spending 40 minutes to see. This video was played earlier this fall. I hosted the fall city managers meeting here in Gladstone, and we watched it there. So I would like to share that with all the staff and commission, if you're available. After that, we will tour City Hall and the Public Works Department and finish up the day at our wastewater plant. If you're available for part of the day, wonderful. The whole day, great. If you're not available December 6th, we can definitely come up with another date that we can tour the other facilities. Next, I have the 2013 City of Gladstone Recreation Plan. You might have received this via email, I'm not sure, but Nicole presented this to her rec board at the last meeting, which was November 12th. And it's out in the public now for a 30-day comment period. So read it over. It looks like a thick document, but really gears into the recreation of the City of Gladstone. If you have any comments, you can email either myself or Nicole directly, and we can get that changed in the document. You will see this document again. It does need to come for commission approval before we send it on its way to the higher Parks and Recreation powers. But if you have comments and we can make the changes before that meeting, that would be great. The next thing I have is November 22nd, we had a mandatory pre-bid meeting for a public works facility. We've been talking about the current public works building for a couple years now. It is beyond its useful life and is in need of repair or replacement. And Barry has worked with several people, what do we need in a building? He and Eric Buckman toured a couple facilities locally, kind of have a design, and that's in the packet here tonight, that we would like to see in a public works facility. We are not the experts in this field, so we put it out to the public for a design build concept. And we kind of have a dollar figure in our head, but not really sure if that's how accurate that is, so we're going to let them tell us what it could cost us. So the bids are due December 20th. We will have bid opening here in the City Hall chambers, and then eventually this will be brought back to you maybe at budget work sessions on how, if we decide to move forward, how we would fund it and that whole process.
Big question.
How we would fund it, yep. And the last thing I have is just want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving.
Very good. Moving on to city commission and committee reports and board and commission reports. This is where, if any, as I understand the design of this agenda is for the commissioners. If you've attended any board or committees that you'd like to report on any information you may have gathered there, conversations you had with those boards that advise us. Hearing none, moving back to public comment. Now, city commissioner comments. This is where quite often I'll have people stop me on the street and say, how about such and such? That's where I try and bring that kind of thing up. So Commissioner Nemechek, do you have anything?
No, it's my first meeting. Don't really have any comment at this time. Enjoyed the meeting.
I saw Lion Dirk today when I was working the Canathon at Super Value, and he told me where you're going tonight, so he knows where you are.
Friday, December 6th is when our Lions Club's ringing the bell for the Salvation Army, and also, so I'm ringing the Salvation Army bell all that morning
Okay.
here and then over in Escanaba for the Salvation Army Board. So I could be here for the luncheon and the afternoon sessions, but not
That's
the morning
fine.
sessions.
Yeah, that's fine.
That'd be okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
That's it?
Yep.
Commissioner Bostwick?
Just like to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. That's it.
Commissioner Gay?
Couple things. Also, wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. It's my favorite holiday. I don't know why.
You like to eat.
I like turkey. Cold turkey sandwiches and watching football. That's heaven to me. For the new commissioners, one thing, we will be getting into budget hearings pretty quick, and I learned a lot during budget hearings. I thought I had somewhat of a handle on things before I was on the commission and going through the budget page to page, but I really didn't have a clue until I sat through. I learned a lot. As I had mentioned to the city manager, I read an article before coming here this evening. There's a city downstate that is actually, I'm sure they're probably still going at it right now. They had a public hearing tonight for a special assessment for public safety. Now, they're attempting to go special assessment rather than millage, and I don't know how that's going to work out. It doesn't sound like it's going to be pretty, but comparing where our budget is and the challenges that we have going forward, I think we're in pretty good shape compared to some of the other cities. And this particular community, I used to live 20 miles from this particular community, and it's a relatively affluent community. Typically have a relatively significant tax base. It kind of surprised me. But comparing us to our situation to other cities and townships and that, I think we're in pretty good shape, and you should you'll probably be surprised at all the stuff that you absorb through the budget hearings, because it's every single detail.
I looked it over and I couldn't believe how detailed it was.
It's very detailed. The other thing for those watching, we would like to have as many residents come to the budget hearings as we possibly could get, so they could start to understand how in-depth and how detailed, how deep the budget process is for the city. Of course, we'd like to have more at our regular commission meetings too, so we can get some more input on whether we're doing good, doing bad, or indifferent. But again, happy Thanksgiving. That's all I've got.
Mr. Mattman?
I'd like to publicly welcome Commissioner Nemechek, and it's good to have him.
Thank you.
And wish everybody a thankful Thanksgiving as well. Other than that, I'm all set.
I will be ringing the bell for a while as a member of the Gladstone Lions on Friday, but not near as long as David will, so I will be here at some time that day. I'd also like to welcome Commissioner Nemechek. I welcomed Commissioner Bostwick at our last meeting. A lady asked me last night, she said she thought the quality or the appearance of our Christmas decorations, that I believe that's a DDA funded project.
Old-fashioned Christmases at
Is.
DDA.
We're starting to look like they probably should be replaced, and I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll mention to the city manager in budget preparation next year, the DDA may want to look into that. As an example of the DDA has the authority to do marketing that we don't have the financial wherewithal to do. So, it's one of someone saw me on the street mention that. What did I have here? Oh yeah, there was an excellent article written about the sports park, which we discussed tonight, done by Ilsa Mathis. I thought that was a really good article. I actually copied it and put it in my file to remember to bring it up tonight. And I'd like to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving as well. I'll be watching the Packers beat the Lions. Wishful thinking. Aaron Rodgers won't be there. And encourage the commissioners to attend, the Parks and Recreation Board. That's the one I tend to go to most. The Plan Commission, the Downtown Development Authority meetings when you get a chance. You'd be interested to hear what they're getting into and what they discuss. And also to try and start getting a grip on the financials, because it's not going to be very long, and Darla and her staff are going to start putting together the budget for next fiscal year, and you're going to be sitting in meetings and being asked to approve a budget. So that's probably the most important task we perform. With that, again, wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. And there's city clerk comments. Yes, I would have skipped right over that. I'm sorry. Does the city clerk have any comments?
Because I don't, other than Happy Turkey Day.
Are you cooking a turkey?
No.
No.
No. I know my place when it comes to the major holidays. Yeah, and I'm
Paul's
okay.
making a turkey. Maybe you could go over there. 2 smiles in one night.
You're the support staff.
Oh. I would have guessed you could cook. Not the case. All right, with that, we'd be adjourned. And there is a picture opportunity, or picture request. The Flat Traveler.
To the city of Gladstone to learn more about it, and so pictures and things are sent back to their kindergarten classroom, and they learn a little bit about the community. So I was wondering if Flat Aid could take a picture with you.
Before this evening, I had no idea what a Flat Traveler was.